Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Donna Adelson during her sentencing. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. Today we're going to be analyzing Donna Adelson during her sentencing for her role in the murder of Dan Markel. My last video analyzing Donna Adelson was when she received the guilty verdict. We saw a lot of crying without tears and we saw a lot of anger. We're going to see if her behavior is different today. All right, let's just jump right in. So right now we're waiting for the sentencing to get started. One thing that Donna Adelson keeps doing is glancing over at the camera, which is so interesting because last time I had talked about how, like just now, how she appears to put on a bit of a performance. And so I'm very curious if today it's going to be the same.
It's number 2023 CF 3226, State versus Donna Adelson. Parties can make their appearances.
You already see her shaking her head again. Now, if you watched her when she found out she was guilty, she continued to shake her head. This is a way that she's already trying to tell everybody, I don't like this. She wants to make sure that non-verbally she is making sure everybody sees just how unhappy she is about this situation.
Number 2023 CF 3226, State versus Donna Adelson. Parties can make their appearances.
The state has put together a summary page and a thumb drive. We are requesting $723,123.68.
You see that blink rate as they're talking about the amount of restitution. You saw the blink rate just going off the charts for a second there, and that suggests stress.
$23.68.
So the reason I'm pointing this out is that this is actually a very natural reaction to stress. We tend to blink more when we feel stressed. We don't tend to shake. We don't tend to do some of the behaviors that we saw during the last hearing. And so I think that it's interesting to see her behavior when when something's mentioned that she would feel very stressed about, such as owing $750,000 for restitution. That seems to show real stress.
For me to argue what I want for sentence. Okay.
Go ahead.
Obviously, life on count one, Judge. We would ask for 30 years consecutive to count one on count two, and 30 years concurrent to count two, but also consecutive to count one on count three. I do not have any additional testimony or other evidence to provide, Your Honor.
We've had this issue of the death points being attached to the non-homicide offenses come up in other cases.
So right now she appears to be resisting giving much of a reaction, which is really more of what the court wants. And so it'll be interesting to see if she can maintain this as we keep going.
That were being scored, but the first-degree murder is not being scored on the score sheet.
And I'm here to speak today on behalf of Donna Adelson, the person I've known for a great deal of time. Hi Donna, just want to say hi. I'm sorry I can't be there to hug you. And I'm sorry we didn't get to have that dinner after your trial was over.
So right now, a longtime friend of the Adelsons is speaking on her behalf. And so the purpose of a face like this is to suggest, look at how close I am with these people. Look how moved I am. It's to humanize her somewhat. Let's see if we actually get any tears here. Because so far, at least in the previous hearings that we've watched, we haven't actually witnessed tears when she appears to be moved or appears to be sad.
I'm sorry we didn't get to have that dinner after your trial was over. But I'm here to, on your behalf, to let you know that you have friends, and I believe in you. Let me say that, Tom, I never thought we'd be here at this situation when I first met you. It was a total shock to me and to our families. And
See, when he said it's a shock to me and to our families, she took a deep breath in, looked over at the judge. She wants to make sure the judge is watching. Look at how moved I am by this. He wouldn't have expected this, so you need to take that into consideration.
Shock to me and to our families. And
see, there's a look over to make sure that the judge is watching.
To me, I've been following this for 2 years. It appears to be a dissolution of two families. My background is similar in many ways.
See, to continue to look back at the judge.
Which is very sad to me. But they do have families, and I had family. And we have to learn a great deal from our tragedies how to come back into life.
So as you can see, that look in her eyebrows, it's persistent and it's meant to appear sad. Now, typically when it's authentic, it doesn't happen nonstop. It can go back and forth, but typically we don't see it just stay there. Now we're going to skip ahead a little bit.
They say we are writing this letter to restate our knowledge and feelings regarding Donna Adelson. We have known Donna since 2009 and consider her to be our dearest friend. Donna is a kind, caring, loving person. She was always concerned with the welfare of others.
So I think that the look she's trying to give off is that she's frail and that she's sad and that how could she possibly have actually done this? All these other people think that she's innocent. How could she possibly have actually done it? The jury must have gotten it wrong. So I think that it is trying to emanate an appearance of being frail and sad.
She is not the monster portrayed by the media. Donna is incapable of threatening or harming anyone.
Now that's interesting. Watch her eyes right here.
She is not the monster portrayed by the media.
So you see her closing her eyes after that. We do that when we think or hear things that we don't like. So I think that the way that she is portrayed in the media must bother her tremendously.
That kind gesture started a 62-plus year friendship. She invited me to her house to meet her family, and over time we became like sisters. I can recall several instances where Donna helped me obtain a job so I can help my parents financially. She introduced me to a family in a bungalow colony in the Catskills.
Flaring her nostrils, pursing her lips, bunching up her face. It's meant to appear as though she's crying, but I still haven't seen any actual tears.
Later that year, I was chosen to be the maid of honor at their wedding. We remained close friends throughout the years, even though we lived more than 1,000 miles apart. Our families visited each other.
So you'll see the quivering lips and shaking chin when they talk about family, when they talk about children, when they talk about moments that should be touching. That's when you see these kinds of behaviors come out. But it doesn't really work in concert with everything else. It just doesn't feel like a real expression of sadness or feeling moved or touched.
Even though we lived more than 1,000 miles apart, our families visited each other periodically, making sure that our children and grandchildren got to know each other.
Because typically what we see is people trying to pacify themselves a little bit to hold back the tears, because in this circumstance they try their best not to cry actually. But what we're seeing right now is it seems like she's leaning into it actually. We're not seeing any tears, but in terms of the behaviors, there doesn't seem to be any of the typical body language that we would see to stifle some of that. Typically people might bite on their lip, they might do something to try to soothe themselves a bit so that they don't cry. We're not seeing anything like that. Much of the behavior continues to be the same. So now we're going to skip ahead to when Harvey Adlesen speaks.
Thank you, Judge, and respected officers of the court for allowing me to speak. I have been Donna Adelsen's husband for over 50 years. My wife sacrificed everything so that she could pour her heart and soul into our children, our grandchildren, and our marriage. This summer was our 54th wedding anniversary, and I had to spend it without her, hand in mind. She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. I have listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial.
So obviously you hear a lot of anger, no question about that, and I think he wants people to hear how angry he is.
And I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never seen their grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendy has shared with me pictures and videos and letters from their visits. They have suffered immensely at the loss of their son, but they also contend to tell lies to the court about our grandchildren. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces and
Before
social
you continue,
media.
Doctor, Ms. Fulford, this has nothing to do with the character of...
So obviously this is the judge that was presiding over this case. So I'm sure it doesn't thrill him to hear Harvey Adlesen just going off about how that the case was mishandled or that it was biased.
That she was convicted of doing. You are sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
Now, given what his argument is, I think that what he just said was very strange, that this is vengeance. Well, vengeance is retribution for something somebody did wrong. And yes, Donna Adelson was involved in the death and murder of Dan Markel. So if she wasn't involved, her going to prison would not be vengeance. I just think that it's very interesting he phrased it that way.
You are sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
Have you ever Googled your own name or email address? Before I had Aura, I did, and wow, it was my full name, my old address, phone number, all sorts of information I did not want people to have. That's why I started using Aura, today's sponsor. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your number or why your inbox is drowning in spam, this is why. They're companies called data brokers that collect and sell your personal information to marketers, scammers, and yes, even stalkers. They do it without your permission. The good news is they're legally required to remove it if you ask. The only issue is that it's time-consuming and they make it as confusing as humanly possible. This is where Aura comes in. They take care of the hard part for you, automatically requesting removals from these data broker sites and keeping your info off of them over time. In the first 2 weeks, you'll see exactly where your personal data is exposed and start watching it disappear without you lifting a finger. It's an all-in-one digital security tool that gives you alerts if your personal info appears on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for crediting and banking, 24/7 identity monitoring, a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more, plus a $5 million identity theft insurance policy and US-based fraud experts available around the clock. You can try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/Dr. G. That's enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your info off all of these data broker sites automatically. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Go to aura.com/Dr. G and get started with your 14-day trial today. All right, back to the analysis. Now we're going to hear Donna Adelson make a statement.
I need to speak loudly because this is not amplified.
Okay. Is this loud enough, Judge?
I can hear you.
Thank you for letting me speak.
We're already seeing the shaking start.
My son-in-law, Dan Markel, was a fine and decent man. He was well-educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father.
Now, this is interesting. I want you to watch her eyebrows when she first starts talking about him. Watch this.
He was well-educated.
See, he was well-educated. Eyebrows go up then. She wants you to hear what she's saying then. That's a point that she wants to focus on.
And passionate about his career.
And passionate about his career. Eyebrows go up during that as well. Once again, bringing attention to what she's saying.
He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father.
See, she didn't raise her eyebrows when she said he's a caring and loving father. So it's interesting that that was a point she actually wasn't trying to emphasize.
On July 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. It should have been just like any other day, an ordinary day in the life of Ben and Lincoln's father, but it wasn't. He didn't know when he left his boys off at daycare that would be the last time he would see them, and the last time they would see him. He didn't know when he went to the gym afterwards that would be the last time he would exercise. And he didn't know when he drove home that his life would end within minutes. Danny wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting.
Once again, you hear the quivering and the shaking of the voice, something that's somewhat unnecessary for this extended period of time and therefore goes back into that category of feeling very performative.
Being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot.
Still not seeing any tears as much as she's trying to sound sad. And what we're not seeing also is we're not seeing a lot of the facial expressions that we would associate with sadness. Right now, look at this. She's baring her teeth. Her eyebrows actually appear angry as she's talking about this.
The terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning.
So this was interesting. I want you to watch her eyes right here.
I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack.
So she looked up at the judge, and then I think it felt too intense and too uncomfortable, so she ends up looking to the side and back the other way, because I guess she thought it would be great to say this, but it is, I think, harder to get out than she thought, and maybe looking at the judge, he doesn't have the reaction she was hoping he would have.
Conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us in his family, his friends, his colleagues in the legal community, and to his students at FSU Law School. Danny's boys each have a photo of themselves with their Abba, their dad, beside their beds. They grew up kissing the framed photo and saying, "Good night, Abba, I love you." But pictures and memories are all they have, because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from...
I think all of us agree with that.
Because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died.
You notice she stopped looking up at the judge. Like I said, I think when she looked up, it felt too intense. We're not seeing a lot of real expression of sadness. We're not seeing any tears. And look, I'm not saying that she has to have tears. I think if she could get through this and just read it as is, that would be fine. But we typically see natural expressions of emotion. And if you're going to be quivering and shaking, and typically you would see tears come with that. The fact that this is the way she presents and there aren't any tears, that's the issue.
I wondered, how could we help these boys through this trauma? It was then that my husband and I knew that the best way to honor Danny's memory would be to share with these children an abundance of love, the love that Danny would have given them if he were alive.
It's interesting that when she's talking about the death of Dan Markel, that's when she gets most quivery. That's when she expresses the most emotion. But when she's talking about the impact that it had on his children, she's actually expressing less emotion there, which is inverted from what we would expect. We would typically expect that would be the moments that would touch us. That would be the harder thing to get out. But that's really not what we're seeing.
The love that Danny would have given them if he were alive. It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder.
As you can hear, she's keeping up the quivering voice as she's now talking about things that should have no real emotion behind it, at least certainly not sadness. She's talking about the issues she has with the state's case. So that continues to show that what we're seeing here goes back to that performative style.
It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanaw's trials, the state claimed she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind.
Now, this is very interesting. Watch her facial expression right here.
In my son Charlie Adelson's trial.
Now, this is a look that she disagrees with what's being said. She does not see Charlie as the mastermind. This is a dismissive look. Yeah, they're saying Charlie was a mastermind. This is a look, that a natural reaction. So now we're getting into some real body language.
Behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind.
This grandma was the mastermind. Goes back to the idea of wanting to appear frail, wanting to appear incapable of this.
I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short.
Now we're seeing anger again. I think she's probably thinking it's coming across like sadness, but I think the real emotion is shining through. Right now you're seeing anger in the brow.
And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it.
Now, what we didn't see just now, she's very consistent with raising her eyebrows when she wants you to listen to what she's saying. She didn't raise her eyebrows when she said, I would have stopped it. So to me, that suggests some degree of deception.
This plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it. With not one iota of actual evidence, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury.
See, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury. When she really wants you to pay attention, those eyebrows go up.
That I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th,
Now you're seeing anger come out. The voice is quivering, but we're seeing anger. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Where is
See, there goes the brow again. She's baring her teeth again. Now we're seeing anger again.
the evidence needed to prove their case? Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue,
That
Mrs.
revealed-
Adelson, as it relates to this
See, and then she brought up the sad face. She brought her eyebrows back together, cocked her head. Now she's trying to appear frail again.
statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Mrs. Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However,
Then she just looked at the camera again because once again, she's thinking about the audience. Watch this.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
See, then she looked at the camera a couple more times because now she has to rethink her game plan. The game plan was, I'm going to appear so sad and so frail, people are going to feel bad for me. And the judge just checked her. The judge just said, I'm not hearing any remorse. There's no remorse right now. So it's backfiring. The frailty, the sadness, all of that. The judge wants to hear, I am remorseful for what I did.
Consideration, the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
And there you see her shaking her head. She disapproves of being spoken to this way.
So,
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014?
And then she just continues with the same line, which even though the judge is saying don't do that, she didn't skip ahead to the part where she gets into things that are more relevant. She is still trying to relitigate the case.
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m.?
And she goes right back into shaking again because I guess this is how she had thought it was going to come across. So she tries to go right back into that mode as soon as she gets back to what she was saying.
That revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act. Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence.
Now we just saw one shoulder shrug. Watch this right here.
Solicitation and conspiracy evidence. The state needed.
So that is a non-committed shrug right there. So when she's suggesting the state didn't have evidence, she's really not committed to that. We would see both shoulders raise up if she was committed to what she's saying.
Needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours.
So now she's insulting the jurors. The judge literally just told her not to do this.
That she had background information concerning what
Now I skipped ahead a few minutes because she just keeps going on and on and on about how innocent she is.
one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
what moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with elocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances, which are properly given to the appellate court. What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
Just one moment, please.
I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loves him.
So when she starts doing this fake crying and the shaking, it's becoming very frustrating because every single time she says his name, this begins. Even Dan Markel's own parents can talk about him without this kind of performance. So for her to do this, I think is offensive, frankly, and I wish she would stop. I don't think that she understands. Maybe she just lacks the insight to understand it is not working on anybody. Nobody is looking at her doing this and thinking, look at this poor, frail woman. She must have loved Dan Markel so much.
The state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without.
I still don't see a single tear. I know I'm repeating myself there, but I think it's a really significant fact. When you sound this sad, typically there's a tear or two, and there are zero.
That would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this.
I think everybody agrees on that. I think the question of who's responsible for it is what she's not focusing on.
And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with.
Watch this right here.
On my life, I was not.
So closing her eyes when she's saying, I was not involved, that avoids having to look at somebody directly in the eyes when you say it. That lowers the risk that you're in fact going to show something or you're going to feel uncomfortable lying to somebody when you look at them.
Full heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
As to the sentence in this matter, Ms. Adelson, please rise. Level of planning and coordination to bring the murder of Professor Markel to fruition was significant in this case. These were not crimes of chance or opportunity, and these crimes also required you to conspire with your son and others. You certainly can choose to deny your involvement and maintain innocence. The court finds the evidence in this case is clear. You will be sentenced accordingly this afternoon. The jury has found you guilty.
So there you can see the eyes close when she hears that. She is distraught that that's the reality of what's happening, but we're also not seeing a lot of emotion now. Now she's not putting on a performance because what's the point? The decision has been made. The judge is has already decided on the sentence. So it does no good to do these kinds of behaviors right now.
You will be sentenced accordingly this afternoon. The jury has found you guilty on charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And the court.
But you do see her shaking her head no. So she can't resist at least a little bit of body language there.
First-degree murder and solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And the court previously adjudicated you guilty as to these same charges on September 4th of this year. On count one of the indictment for first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or release, pursuant to sections 782.04 and 775.082 sub.
So you saw a big breath in afterward. You see the blinking picking up. That is a real reaction. It's a stress reaction. Anybody that's being told they're going to spend the rest of their life in prison obviously is going to feel stressed, but we're not seeing the shaking. We're not seeing the crying. None of that right now. 04
and 775.082 sub 1 sub A Florida statutes. On count two of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to 30 years in the Department of Corrections that will run consecutive to count one. The court will also sentence you to 30 years in the Department of Corrections on count three. Counts 2 and 3 are to run concurrent with each other, but consecutive to count 1.
It appears that the camera's glitched a bit after this, so it just cuts off, so we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of the behavior and body language that we saw today. So what did we see from Donna Adelson today? Well, once again, we saw lots of crying, but no tears. We saw a lot of emotion, but we didn't see much authentic emotion. At the end, when she was finally read her sentence, she didn't show much because I think in the reality, she may have felt stressed, but that was a very authentic reaction. If you have any other thoughts about this, or if there's anything else you want to analyze, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.